Hello, Dean Schwimmer here. Welcome to today's vlog. Today I want to fulfill a promise that I made 1, 2, maybe even 3 vlogs ago to pick up on a subject that I had been talking about 2 or 3 vlogs ago, root causes of the rioting that we have been seeing. Fortunately, the rioting is calming down. We're down to peaceful demonstrations, but I did say that I want to talk about what our liberal friends call root causes. I had talked a bit about it in that earlier vlog, and I was going to continue, and then other things came up, and I actually do have something I think is very significant that I do want to talk about, but I want to fulfill my promise, so I'm going to talk about it tomorrow. But I first need to just briefly add to something I talked about in the last vlog, which was the sudden and surprising news of greater than, well, just an unexpected improvement at all in the economy, or at least the unemployment picture. I had talked about Professor Alan Lichtman, his 13 keys to the White House. I'm not going to go through what they are. I am putting a link in the description so you can read the complete story if you want to of exactly what they are. What Lichtman did was compile a list of 13 what he calls keys, affirmative statements that, if true, favor the incumbent party. If false, they favor the challenging party in the presidential election. He has been using this methodology since 1982, and he has been pretty much 100% correct. Technically, maybe not, but as I said, I'm not going to go into details. We'll just say 100% because as a practical matter, he's been 100% correct. If 5 or fewer keys are false, the incumbent party will get another 4 years in the White House. If 6 or more are false, then the challenging party will win. 2 of those keys are the economy, the short-term economy, the long-term economy. Short-term economy, the economy is not in recession during the election campaign. That was true for Trump's presidency up to this coronavirus lockdown. Then it became false, but maybe it's going to be true again. So what had been counting against Trump now may be counting in his favor. We'll have to see what happens between now and the election. The other key, key number 6, is long-term economy. Real per capita economic growth during the term equals or exceeds mean growth during the previous 2 terms. So we'll have to see what happens there too. But with the economy apparently getting better, if that is a trend that continues, then that will help Trump. Now, to get to these root causes, I had actually planned a talk about this subject, but a couple of very good writers, commentators, really did the job for me to the extent that I really just have to quote them. So I'm just going to give you some quotes, and then I'm going to give you a video or some video snips from a certain ex-mayor of New York City, and then I have one more headline, and that'll be it for today. So let me give you the first quote, which comes from Daniel Henninger. He writes for the Wall Street Journal, America's New Nihilism. The failure of the liberal model, and just to give you a preview of coming attractions, that is the root cause that I am talking about, the failure of the liberal model. I will give you some more detail in these quotes, but getting back to Henninger, the failure of the liberal model is by now so embarrassing that the current owners of that model have created an alternative universe of explanations, such as blaming it on American settlers in the early 17th century or the non-existence of, quote, justice, unquote. The mention of American settlers in the early 17th century, that's a reference to a series that the New York Times did, what they call the 1619 Project. 1619 is the year that slaves were first imported into what were then the English colonies. The author of that project is claiming that the United States was not born in 1776, and that the reasons for the revolution are not the real reasons for the declaring of independence, and not the basis of the Constitution, but that the United States, our entire history, our entire philosophy, reason for being, is rooted in slavery. That's what Henninger is talking about. Which brings me to Kevin Williamson, who writes for a number of publications, mostly these days National Review. Interesting about him, he was hired to write a regular column for The Atlantic, a liberal magazine. He was fired almost immediately because of an opinion piece that he had written years before. The Atlantic said that they wanted to get a variety of opinions, but apparently not, at least in Williamson's case. But anyways, let me quote you from Williamson's recent article, Comforting Abstractions. Who is responsible for the mess in Minneapolis? The answer to that question is not unknowable, but it is, in many political quarters, unspeakable. Minneapolis's municipal government, its institutions, and its police department are what they are, not because of the abstract Hegelian forces of capital H history, but because of decisions that have been made by people. Who these people are is a matter of public record. We know their names: Jacob Fry, Betsy Hodges, R.T. Ryback, Sharon Sales Belton, Medaria Arredondo, Janie Harteau, Tim Waltz, Mark Dayton. The rogues gallery is practically inexhaustible. But oh, the transmuting magic of partisanship. Minneapolis is a Democratic city with a Democratic mayor and a Democratic city council, 0.0 Republicans on that body, in a state with a Democratic governor and a Democratic state house. These are the people who hire police chiefs and organize police departments, who specify their procedures and priorities, who write the laws that the police are tasked with enforcing. Democrats and progressives practically to a man. Not every member of the Minneapolis City Council is a Democrat. There's a green too. That's a lot of lefty power. Hardly anything except lefty power. But somehow the bad guy in this story must be Donald Trump. Cue the retreat into abstraction. The problem mustn't be political leaders and the decisions they make. That can't be it, because progressives have all the power in these cities, and so the problem instead must be something without a fixed address and regular business hours. Systemic racism, white supremacy, white privilege, capitalism, etc. It isn't that racism is imaginary any more than crime, poverty, or government corruption is imaginary. But Minneapolis hasn't been governed by abstractions all these years. It has been governed by people, and we know who they are. This plays out in some obvious ways. For example, some critics of police violence have come around to the view that one of the problems here is the power of police unions, which resist efforts to increase accountability and oversight of their members. There is a political party in this country that is very much committed to increasing the power of public sector unions, that has worked hard with some success to do that, and that is enormously dependent upon the financial and political support of those unions for its campaign efforts. And it is not called the Republican Party, it's the other one. It surely is the case that the African American children who attend public schools in Philadelphia or Atlanta are subjected to the same racism experienced by other Black Americans. But it wasn't the agents of white supremacy that corrupted their school administrations and made their educational institutions into the dysfunctional failures they are today. It wasn't David Duke who turned Atlanta public schools into a criminal conspiracy that ended in racketeering convictions. Progressives have been running the show in big city school districts for decades, and the mess they are is the mess progressives made of them. The Democrats are going to have their convention in Milwaukee this year. If Republicans had any wit to them at all, I would not bet on that, but if Republicans had any wit to them at all, This would present a priceless political opportunity because Milwaukee is a mess. Its schools are in a special mess, and Wisconsin has the biggest black-white academic achievement gap in the country. Black students in Wisconsin have the second lowest graduation rate in the country. We have no need to resort to abstraction. We have real people to hold accountable, and we know their names. In the current crisis, that apparently is one thing we are unable or unwilling to do. To which I would simply add my own comment, very short, and it's simply to second everything that Williamson said in the article that I just quoted and to which I linked in the description. I encourage everybody to read the whole article. But in the current crisis, that apparently is the one thing that we are unable or unwilling to do, which is to talk about the failures of democratic governance. It's understandable that Democrats would not want to talk about this, but it is beyond me why Republicans would not want to talk about this. Now, I just want to give you a headline to illustrate what Williamson just said. All rioters, arsonists, looters in St. Louis freed from jail without charges. Quote, in a stunning development, our office has learned that every single one of the St. Louis looters and rioters arrested were released back onto the streets by local prosecutor Kim Gardner, unquote, Missouri Attorney General Eric Schmidt said in a statement posted online. There's your example of liberal democratic misgovernance right there. Go on Google, you will find many more examples, but I want to close with a description of the right way to do it by someone who did it the right way, who knows how to do it the right way. And I speak of none other than Rudy Giuliani, about whom I can speak with personal experience. As I have mentioned probably ad nauseum by now, I moved to where I am now, Tennessee, about a year and a half ago from New York, where I lived for 40 years. I experienced New York in the 70s, the late 70s. I arrived in 1977. All the dysfunction in New York until it got so bad that the city elected a Republican, Rudy Giuliani, and how he turned the city around virtually overnight, just a few short years. And since he left, they coasted for a while by electing Bloomberg, who, by the way, ran and was elected as a Republican. He became an independent later, and as we all know, ran for the Democratic nomination. But at that time, he was elected as a Republican, and obviously on Giuliani's coattails. There were some problems that I had with quote unquote nanny Bloomberg, that's what he was called, during his administration, but he did keep order. He worked well with the police, but under de Blasio, that has all gone by the wayside. New York is falling back into the way it was in the 70s. And if you want to know what it was like, I suggest picking up a copy of Tom Wolfe's Bonfire of the Vanities. It describes it perfectly. But I just want to give you some video snippets from Giuliani from an interview that he just did with Maria Bartiromo. So watch the video and then just come back to me.
No signs that de Blasio is going to step down. Is New York safe?
No. It's safer. I mean, he did react to what I said and what the governor said, and a number of other people. It wasn't just me and he did activate the police somewhat, but still with a lot of things that aren't being done, including things. I mean, some of the things he did obviously angered the left, but some of the things that he could do. For example, why isn't he using policemen on horseback? I use policemen on horseback to end crime in Times Square. And you just put them out, they can see in a crowd much better. They can easily distinguish the Antifa troublemakers and the legitimate protesters. They can see within a crowd that somebody is getting ready to throw a rock before they throw it, or getting a Molotov cocktail ready. It's totally insane that he's not using it. It can't be that those police professionals aren't recommending it. They're too smart. So he doesn't want to do it. And I understand he doesn't want to do it because he's afraid he's going to get in trouble with the animal people.
The editorial board of the New York Times writes this to de Blasio: "Open your eyes. The police are out of control." What can Governor Cuomo do about it at this point? And Rudy, I mean, these thousands on the streets of New York City for a 10th straight day in a row, how much longer can this go on?
Well, it can't go on for much longer. I mean, they have been peaceful. They were yesterday, and they were the day before. It does put a tremendous strain on the police department, and the idea that the police department in the New York Times, that the police department is out of control, is totally crazy. I mean, it's a complete construct of the left. It's like the hysteria they've created over police brutality. And last year, only 9 unarmed black men were shot by police officers. 20 white men were. And blacks were killed 99% of the time by other people, civilians, about 80% black, and then everybody else. So basically, police brutality, when it happens, is shocking and terrible, but it's not at all, it's not even close to systemic. It's very rare, actually. And that's just the truth. That's not racist.
Yet you've got this movement.
You can't say that.
You've got left lawmakers like AOC, Omar Tlaib, all pushing to defund the police. Celebrities like John Legend, Jane Fonda, signing this open letter. What are the implications of this? What kind of services will be, pushed in if you do have this defund the police?
The implications of this, it would be devastating for the black community, much more than the white community. They cannot care about black lives. I mean, the idea that Black Lives Matter would want to defund the police tells you it is a phony organization. I mean, the police kill a minuscule number of black people. Other black people kill 5,000, 6,000 other black people a year. The only thing that reduces that is the police. When I came into office, blacks were being killed 4 times more, maybe 5 than they are now. I didn't stop it by disbanding the police. I didn't stop it with social workers or the New York Times. I stopped it with putting a lot more police officers in Harlem than my predecessors did, and taking heat in the white communities for doing that. Because I was really interested in saving black lives and not just political propaganda or bull. This is tragic. This is where political ideology run amok costs lives, like de Blasio has done to the city. You will literally
what do you think?
Double, triple the number of black victims if you take the police out of these neighborhoods.
Welcome back. And if you were wondering before watching the video that I just showed you what competent, strong, urban governance is, wonder no more. You just saw it and heard it. And now I would like to see, if it's not too much trouble, a thumbs up if you like this video. Share with anybody you think would also like the video. Got any comments? You can put comments in the comment section below the video, as well as suggestions for future topics, any questions you might have. And I would love to get subscribers, so subscribe. But finally, and most of all, come back and see me again. I look forward to seeing all of you again. And until I do see all of you again, bye.